Hey everybody, it's Sully Man. Today we're going to work on Chrome text. What we're going to do is type out some text, apply some layer styles, and before you know it, we're going to have some pretty cool looking Chrome text. So let's get started. I'm going to start by typing out Pixel Moshpit, and I chose a nice thick, kind of aggressive black letter kind of styled font. Not so much black letter, but gives the impression. So my suggestion with this is, you want to pick a thicker font, not to say that you can't use a thinner, calligraphy style font. You can, you just have to adjust for it in the bevel. But it doesn't really give you a whole lot of room to play with, so that's why I suggest using a thicker font. So in the blending options for this layer, I'm going to head over to Bevel and Emboss. I'm going to go ahead and check that box. And you'll see, and you'll notice a little flicker. It's archiving. Again, I kind of rehearse this stuff before I start recording, and you'll notice it'll flicker every once in a while when you actually see the chrome. But anyways, back to the tutorial. So in the bevel options, I raised the bevel to the degree that I wanted, and now I'm applying a contour. And the contour you can see on the edge, the raised portion, that thin little sliver that's kind of raised. You can choose the profile that it is. So now in here, what I'm doing is I'm actually I've applied a stroke to the edge, and I've matched the stroke with, or at least I will, with the bevel. And then what I did is, for the appearance of the stroke, I applied a gradient, and you can see that I've alternated, from white to a dark gray, and I repeat that. And you can see that in the gradient panel. And what that does is just kind of gives it a metallic look. And then, I'm going to choose the scale and angle for that. I like the, you can see what I'm doing here. So the size actually is just a hair above what the actual bevel's sizing is, just so it leaks over the edge of the bevel. And then, I choose the scale and angle, and it gives it that nice looking shimmer, as if light's coming from a different direction. So right here now, I'm applying an inner shadow, and what that's going to do is, you'll notice it adds a little bit of extra shine towards the inside of the lettering. I make sure it comes past the distance setting is past the stroke and bevel sizing. So I'm turning up the opacity. I've got it set to normal, and the layer is on white. So it adds that inner, you can see towards like the top of the M and the O and the L and stuff like that, that it has a nice little shine to it. So this just helps, sell the depth, to the viewer. So now I'm doing the same thing with the drop shadow here, but I'm using black this time to drop it off the background. So now I got that nice little drop shadow. So we've applied a bevel, chosen a contour, which is a slight, circular profile that dips down. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to set up a pattern. And this pattern we're going to apply in the layer options. So what I'm doing here is, as I'm sure a good chunk of you guys know, reflections are what you see in metal. So right now, basically, I'm creating a pattern that's going to be the reflection that we see. And we apply this through the pattern. So what I'm doing here is I take this image. It's a nice HDRI image, or panorama actually. And what I'm doing is I just take it and I blur it out. I do a motion blur, and I do that motion blur from left to right. And what I'm doing now is I'm applying an adjustment layer. The adjustment layer, I'm knocking down the saturation. I don't want it to be too saturated, and I'm pushing it more towards the greens. So once I have that saturation adjusted, what I want to do is apply some white towards the top, which you'll notice I do here in just a moment. So what I'm doing, I just create a new layer, I grab my gradient tool, I make sure the gradient goes from a color to transparency, and then I apply the white to it. So I think in here I'm just kind of playing around with some of the settings here, knocking up, some of the colors too. I'm shifting kind of like the center where the land was. I'm shifting it more towards greens. Is what I'm doing there. So yeah, once I have that ready, basically I merge them down into one layer. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply a warp to all of it, and the warp I'm going to use is wave, because in a lot of the reflections the material is bending, so we kind of want to mimic that. So what I did is just applied a wave warp to this, and then what I do is I select all and go to edit and define pattern. So you can label this whatever you want. I'm going to label it Chrome Effect. I hit click OK. So now that is set in my pattern list. I forgot the name there for a second. So through the pattern list, I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I can apply it. Now what's cool about with the pattern overlay is in the window, the actual art canvas, you can shift around with the move tool where you want the pattern. You can see it's just repeating itself. So I'm trying to watch out for the edge where it starts to repeat. You can see that nice flat edge. And then I scale it down to the size that I think works, and I want that wave kind of just about in the middle of where the text is. And again, this is all, you know, user preference, so, you know, whatever you guys think works, go for it. So I've shifted it down and moved it off to the right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm applying a gradient overlay. And you'll see throughout this entire tutorial, I'm just kind of playing around with stuff. So, you know, I think it's good for you guys because you'll actually get to see, you know, this is just me working. You know, I'm playing around with stuff till I get it to look right. So from here, what I'm actually doing is I'm applying that gradient on top of the pattern overlay. So what I do is in the blend mode, I set it to vivid light, and then the gradient I adjust from a, you know, like a medium gray all the way to white. And what it's going to do is it's going to, you know, the layer mode's going to boost things to a specific level. So the grays aren't playing with so much, but as it starts to get into the white, it's when it's really kind of, you know, using the vivid light portion. So I knock down the opacity of that. And then I think, yeah, so here you can see I'm just kind of adjusting for the change in the actual pattern overlay. So I just kind of pulled it down a little bit so I can keep some of those blues from the sky. So now that I'm done with the gradient overlay, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to apply the satin layer style. Satin just kind of mimics the look of, you know, plastic wrapped around something. That's kind of generally its purpose. So I'm using it in a different way. You know, it's set to multiply right off at the beginning with black. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change that. I'm going to use more of the lights. So you'll see I'm just kind of goofing around here. What I end up doing is setting the blend mode to overlay. I've got, you know, playing around with hard light now and just kind of tweaking it. But yeah, so the end setting I use overlay, so that uses both the white and the blacks. I choke and trap till it looks right to me. And choking and trapping just means when you're choking something, you're shrinking it. When you're trapping something, you're expanding it. So that's what the distance setting is doing, and you can see that it's it keeps the form of the shape of whatever's in the layer and expands or contracts. So once I get the distance adjusted to where I think it looks right, I'm trying to make it look like it kind of wraps around the edge. What I end up doing is I invert the settings that I have. I'm never too happy with the result I was getting. So I uncheck the invert box. So basically black becomes the bigger portion of the satin artwork. And the whites around the edges, so it has that nice, you know, white edge right next to where the bevel is, so it just kind of offsets some of the dark areas, and it has that, just gives it a real nice look. So once I get that adjusted, I don't think I was ever super duper happy with the gradient overlay, so I'm going to go back and adjust that, but for the most part it's pretty much done. So, you know, as far as the tutorial is concerned, your Chrome's ready to go. But from here, what I do is I'm going to show you a few quick little techniques to apply some warps and get your text bent. So you can see here I'm adjusting the gradient overlay. I don't think I was ever too happy with it. It just seemed like it was knocking too much of the blue out. So I keep tweaking the scale and playing around with that. So once I hit OK, that's pretty much done. So what we want to do from here is we basically want to save to use this later. We can apply this to all sorts of stuff later. You know, it doesn't have to be just text. You might have some shapes or something that you might want to apply it to. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So what I do here is I create a new style. I go to I make sure that I have the layer clicked, and in my styles panel I hit the drop down menu and apply a new style. You can do the same thing by when you're actually in the layer style option, the blending options for the layer, you'll see a little button that says new style that you can click to. So once you do that, it'll dump a little icon square, and you can see all those styles that I have set there. They do all sorts of stuff, from blood splatters to just about anything you can think. So from here, you just click that layer style to your new artwork, and just make a few adjustments, which is just basically, majority of the time, it's just adjusting the pattern overlay and maybe your drop shadow to get it to where you want it to look, and you're good to go. So you have this chrome text, ready for anything. So from here, I apply a warp to the text layer. You'll notice that the layer styles don't follow the warp. To bypass that in Photoshop, you just want to turn that layer into a smart object, and it'll bend with it. So basically, I just go through and apply the warp till it looks right to me, and I'm pretty much done. So from there, I just want to thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, share, comment. All that stuff helps the channel. And also, to support the channel, I do have a ton of layer styles at my store that you guys can purchase and use, all from blood splatters to chrome effects, glows, all sorts of stuff. So I'd appreciate if you guys support in that way as well. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Sometimes you'll want to be urged to, like on this style, just use a